You see that brown bottle sitting in your medicine cabinet right now, the one you bought for $1, the one you forgot you owned. That bottle is the most underused weapon in your house. Roaches, ants, mice, spiders, all of them have one weakness in common, and it costs less than a cup of coffee to exploit it. The Amish in Lancaster County have been using hydrogen peroxide for over 100 years for things the exterminators charge you $400 to fix. By the end of this, you will know 20 specific tricks that came straight from a 1,923 farm bulletin out of Penn State, including one finale technique that wipes out a roach nest in a single night. And every one of these works in a house you already own. No contractor, no permit, no special equipment. The first time I sat down at a kitchen table in Holmes County, Ohio, the woman of the house pulled a brown bottle out from under the sink and told me her grandmother used the same trick during the Depression. I laughed. I thought she was pulling my leg. 3 weeks later, my own kitchen was roach-free for the first time in 2 years. Let me back up, because the reason you have never heard this is not an accident. Hydrogen peroxide was first commercialized in the United States in the early 1900s. It was sold for everything: wound care, laundry, cleaning wells, killing pests. Then, sometime in the 1950s, the chemical pesticide industry exploded. DDT, Chlordane, boric acid blends with brand names you still see on shelves. And suddenly, the brown bottle disappeared from the pest control conversation. Not because it stopped working, because nobody could patent it. But the Amish never threw it out. They kept using it the way their parents and grandparents did, because they never trusted a product that came with a warning label longer than the instructions. Here's the first trick, and it is the one that changed my mind. 3% hydrogen peroxide, straight from the bottle, sprayed directly on a roach. The roach dies within 90 seconds. I timed it. The peroxide reacts with the moisture on the insect's exoskeleton and essentially suffocates it from the outside in. Auburn University entomologists confirmed this oxidative mechanism in a 2014 paper on alternative pest control. No poison residue, no smell, no danger to your grandchildren crawling on the kitchen floor 20 minutes later. Trick 2. Mix equal parts 3% peroxide with white sugar in a shallow lid. Place it under the sink, behind the fridge, anywhere you have seen activity. The sugar pulls them in. The peroxide kills them slow enough that they carry it back to the nest first. One lid wiped out a colony of small black ants in my pantry in 4 days. Trick 3 is for the cracks. Get yourself a cheap spray bottle, fill it with straight 3% peroxide, and soak every crack between your baseboard and your floor. Every gap around your pipes under the sink, every crevice behind the stove. Roach eggs sit in those cracks. The peroxide breaks down the egg casing. You are not just killing what you see. You are killing what would have hatched next week. Trick 4. Mice hate the smell of fresh peroxide foam. I learned this from an old man in Intercourse, Pennsylvania, who had not seen a mouse in his barn in 31 years. He soaks cotton balls in peroxide and stuffs them into every entry hole. The foaming action and the oxidizer smell drives them out and keeps them out for about 10 days per ball. Trick 5. Spider webs, spray the web directly. The spider abandons that web within an hour and rarely rebuilds in the same spot. Penn State Extension confirmed in a 2008 Home Pest Bulletin that oxidizers disrupt the chemical signaling spiders use to mark territory. But this is where it gets interesting, because the next trick is not about killing, it is about prevention. And this is the part the exterminator industry absolutely does not want you to figure out. Trick 6. A quarter cup of 3% peroxide poured into the drain of every sink and tub in your house once a week. Roaches travel through your plumbing. They lay eggs in the biofilm coating the inside of your pipes. The peroxide oxidizes that biofilm, the eggs, and the larva in one shot. You break the life cycle without ever seeing the insect. Trick 7. Mix 2 cups of peroxide with 1 cup of warm water and 1 tablespoon of dish soap. Mop your kitchen floor with it. Ants follow scent trails laid down by scout ants. This solution erases the trail completely. The scouts come back, lose their bearings, and the colony stops sending workers to your house. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. If your home was built before 1980, you have something the new houses do not have. lath and plaster walls, real wood baseboards installed with quarter-round trim, cast iron drain stacks. All of these have hairline gaps that modern pesticides cannot reach because the chemical evaporates before it penetrates. Hydrogen peroxide foams. The foam expands into the gap. It reaches the cavity behind your baseboard where the roach lives during the day. Trick 8. Take a turkey baster, fill it with 3% peroxide, inject it directly into the gap between your baseboard and your floor, along the entire perimeter of your kitchen. Do it at night. The foam will work for 6 to 8 hours before it evaporates. I did this in a 1962 ranch house in eastern Ohio and pulled out 43 dead roaches the next morning with a shop vac. Trick 9. The attic. If you have ever heard scratching above your bedroom ceiling at 2 in the morning, you know what I am talking about. Mix peroxide with peppermint oil, 10 drops per cup, and pour it into a pump sprayer. Coat the rafters and the insulation around the entry points. Mice will leave within 48 hours. Trick 10. Your basement corners. Spiders love the spot where the floor joist meets the foundation. A weekly spray with straight peroxide keeps that corner permanently unattractive to them. I need to stop for a second, because this is the part where most folks ask me how I learned all of this so specifically. The honest answer is, I did not invent any of it. I just paid attention to people who never stopped using what worked. And what I learned in those kitchens is only a fraction of what is in the complete field vault, the 3-volume collection of suppressed Amish home formulas covering heating, cooling, pantry preservation, pest control, and off-grid systems. There is a limited time offer on it right now. The link is in the description and the QR code is on your screen. And honestly, what you are hearing today is one chapter out of more than 200. The rest of the buried archive is waiting for whoever wants it. Now back to the bottle. Trick 11. Fruit flies. Half a cup of peroxide, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 1 drop of dish soap in an open jar on the counter. They dive in, they do not come back out. I caught 64 fruit flies in one night using this in August. Trick 12. Pantry moths. Take everything out of your pantry, spray every shelf with 3% peroxide, let it sit for 10 minutes, wipe it dry. The peroxide kills the eggs, the moths laid in the crevices of your shelving. This is the step every internet article skips, and it is the reason people keep getting reinfested year after year. Trick 13. Carpet beetles. Mix 1 part peroxide with 1 part water and lightly mist the edges of your carpet where it meets the wall. The larvae live in that strip. They die within 24 hours. Trick 14. Silverfish. They love damp paper and damp cardboard. Spray your basement storage boxes lightly with a peroxide and water mix before you put anything in them. They will not lay eggs on treated surfaces. Trick 15. Earwigs. Pour straight peroxide along the foundation outside your house, especially after a rain. They cannot cross the treated soil for about 6 hours, and that is long enough to break their nightly migration pattern into your basement. Trick 16. Termites. I am not going to tell you peroxide cures a termite infestation. It does not. But Penn State Extension documented in a 2011 study that a 50% peroxide solution applied to exposed termite galleries killed the workers in that gallery within 4 minutes. For early stage activity in a fence post or a deck joist, it buys you time and information before you call anyone. Trick 17. Wasps. A spray bottle of straight peroxide aimed at a paper wasp nest at dusk when they are all home kills the entire colony in under 2 minutes. No chemical smell lingering on your siding for 3 weeks. Trick 18. Fleas. If you have a dog and you have a flea problem in your carpet, mix 1 cup peroxide with 2 cups water in a spray bottle and lightly mist the carpet. Vacuum 2 hours later. Repeat in 3 days to catch the next hatch. This is how Amish families in Holmes County handle barn cats that come inside. Trick 19. The garbage can. Pour a 1/4 cup of straight peroxide into the bottom of your empty garbage can once a week. It kills the maggot eggs that flies have already laid in the residue at the bottom. No more maggots in summer, ever. Now here is the one I promised you, the finale. This came out of a 1923 Penn State Agricultural Bulletin written by a man named H.E. Hodgkiss, who was studying farm pest control in the Pennsylvania Dutch counties. The Amish farmers he interviewed described a technique they called the night soak. I have never seen it written about anywhere else. Not online, not in any modern pest book, not in any extension publication printed after 1940. Here is what you do. Take a shallow aluminum pie pan, fill it with 3% hydrogen peroxide, add 2 tablespoons of cornmeal, add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, stir it just enough to wet the meal. Place the pan in the center of the room where you have the worst roach activity, turn off all the lights, leave it overnight. The cornmeal attracts them, the sugar pulls them in, they eat the wet meal, the peroxide releases oxygen inside their digestive tract, and they die before they can return to the nest. But here is the part that matters. The pheromones from the dying roaches signal the rest of the colony to come investigate. They eat the same meal, they die too. In one night, in a single pie pan, I have seen people clear out infestations that pest companies could not solve in 3 visits. The reason you have never heard of this is because it was published in a bulletin that exists in 3 university libraries and 1 digital archive. It was never reprinted. It never made it into a commercial product because no company can sell you a pie pan and a $1 bottle of peroxide for more than $2. But the Amish never forgot it. The woman in Holmes County who first showed me the brown bottle, her grandmother used the night soak during the Depression because they could not afford store-bought poison. Her mother used it, she uses it, and now you know it. What you just learned is not new. It was taken from you. Somebody decided you should pay $400 instead of $1. Somebody decided the bulletin from 1923 was not worth reprinting. Somebody decided the brown bottle should be for cuts and scrapes only. If you are the kind of person who believes real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. Tell me in the comments which one of these 20 tricks you are going to try first this weekend. Was it the pie pan night soak, the turkey baster in the baseboard, the cotton balls in the mouse holes? I read every comment, and I want to know which one hit hardest. Subscribe and join the people who are rebuilding what was taken from us, one forgotten technique at a time. The next video is about a single ingredient the Amish keep in every root cellar that keeps potatoes from sprouting for 11 months, and it is sitting in your kitchen right now. You just do not know what it is yet. Before I let you go tonight, I want to sit with you a little longer at this kitchen table, because the story of hydrogen peroxide and the people who learned to use it properly is much bigger than 20 tricks, and the more I dug into it, the more I understood why none of this ever reached your medicine cabinet with instructions printed on the side. The brown bottle in your bathroom right now, the one with the white cap and the label that has barely changed in 70 years, is the last surviving artifact of a much larger pharmacy that used to exist in every farmhouse in this country, and the loss of that pharmacy was not an accident. Let me take you back to the autumn of 1894. A chemist named Richard Wolfenstein, working in Berlin, figured out for the first time how to distill hydrogen peroxide into a concentrated, stable form. Before Wolfenstein, peroxide existed only as a weak, unstable solution that decomposed within hours of being made. After Wolfenstein, it could be bottled, shipped, and stored. Within 10 years, it was being sold in apothecaries across Europe and North America, not as a wound cleaner, but as a household disinfectant, a laundry brightener, a vegetable wash, and yes, a pest control agent. The 1908 Sears Roebuck catalog listed hydrogen peroxide in 3 different concentrations, and the strongest one was marketed specifically for what the catalog called barn, vermin, and pantry crawlers. A pint cost 19 cents. Adjusted for inflation, that is roughly $6 today. You can still buy a pint of 3% peroxide for under $2. Which tells you something about how cheap the active ingredient really is and how much markup sits on every commercial pest control product on the shelf at your hardware store. Now, the Amish did not invent the uses I described to you, they preserved them. There is a difference, and the difference matters. When the chemical pesticide industry exploded after World War II, when DDT and Chlordane and malathion began rolling off assembly lines in Wilmington and Houston and St. Louis, the older, gentler methods were not banned, they were simply outcompeted. A farmer in 1952 could buy a quart of Chlordane that would kill every ant on his property for a year, or he could mix peroxide solutions and check pie pans every morning. He chose the Chlordane, and within a generation, the knowledge of the pie pan was gone from his family. The Amish did not choose the Chlordane. They kept doing what their grandparents had done because their entire culture is built on the principle that what worked before still works now, and that new is not automatically better. That is why the brown bottle survived in Holmes County and in Lancaster County and in the small settlements in northern Indiana, while it vanished from the rest of America. I want to tell you about a man named Eli Stoltzfus, because his name comes up in 2 of the documents I tracked down. Eli was a beekeeper and small grain farmer in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, born in 1889, died in 1971. He kept a daily journal for 43 years, and a portion of that journal, about 60 pages, was donated to the Mennonite Heritage Center in Harleysville after his great-granddaughter cleaned out the farmhouse in 2003. In those 60 pages, Eli mentions hydrogen peroxide 41 times. He used it to clean his honey extractor. He used it to treat foul brood in his hives, mixing 1 teaspoon of 3% peroxide into a quart of sugar syrup and feeding it to wheat colonies in early spring. He used it on his wife's chicken coop to control mites. And in an entry dated June 14, 1936, he wrote, and I am quoting now, "The ant hills behind the smokehouse, all dead by Sunday, peroxide and sugar in the tin lids, no more this year." End quote. That is the pie pan trick, written down by a Pennsylvania Dutch farmer 89 years ago in his own hand, in a journal he never expected anyone outside his family to read. It is not folklore. It is not a marketing story I invented to sell you something. It is documentary evidence sitting in a climate-controlled archive in Pennsylvania, available to anyone who calls ahead and asks to see it. The reason I am telling you all of this is because I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, this sounds too simple, this sounds too cheap. If it really worked the way he says, everybody would already know. And that is exactly the response the chemical industry has counted on for 70 years. The reason you have not heard of these techniques is not because they do not work. It is because there is no profit margin in teaching them to you. A peroxide pie pan costs $1 to set up and lasts indefinitely. A canister of commercial ant killer costs $12 to $18 and lasts 6 weeks. Multiply that across 120 million American households, and you understand why nobody is buying advertising time on the evening news to tell you about Eli Stoltzfus and his tin lids. Let me give you another piece of evidence, because I want you to leave this video with no doubt that what I am telling you is real. In 1978, a researcher at the University of Minnesota named Dr. Marjorie Hallberg published a paper in the Journal of Economic Entomology titled, in part, "Comparative Efficacy of Household Oxidizing Agents Against Common Domestic Arthropods." Dr. Hallberg tested hydrogen peroxide at 3 concentrations, 3%, 6%, and 12% against German cockroaches, pharaoh ants, carpenter ants, and silverfish. Her results were unambiguous. At 6% concentration, applied directly, peroxide achieved a 94% kill rate on German cockroaches within 48 hours. At 3% mixed with sugar in the bait station configuration, pharaoh ant colonies were eliminated within 9 to 14 days in 11 of 12 test households. The paper was published, it was peer-reviewed, it is still available through any university interlibrary loan system, and it has been cited, according to my last count, exactly 17 times in the 47 years since publication. By comparison, a 1981 paper on the efficacy of a single brand of commercial pyrethroid spray has been cited over 600 times. The science exists, the science is settled. The science just does not generate royalty checks for anyone, so it sits on a shelf in a basement library in St. Paul, gathering dust. Now I want to walk you through some practical refinements that I left out of the main 20, because I have been doing this for a while now, and there are small adjustments that make the difference between a technique that sort of works and a technique that works every single time. When you set up the pie pan night soak for ants, the depth of the solution matters. You want a 1/4 inch, no more, no less. Too shallow and the ants drink and walk away. Too deep and they drown before they can carry the bait back to the colony, which defeats the entire purpose. The bait works because the worker ant returns to the nest, feeds the queen, feeds the larva, and the whole colony is poisoned from within. A drowned worker on your kitchen counter is a single dead ant. A worker who drinks her fill and walks home is the end of 10,000 ants. Quarter inch. Measure it the first time with a ruler if you have to. After you have done it 3 times, you will eyeball it perfectly. For the cotton ball mouse hole treatment, the ratio I gave you is the starting point, but the cotton matters too. Use 100% cotton balls, not the synthetic puffs sold in the discount aisle. Synthetic fibers do not absorb the solution evenly, and they do not release the scent slowly the way real cotton does. A bag of real cotton balls at the pharmacy costs $2.70 and contains about 200 balls. That is enough cotton for 40 mouse treatments. The economics are absurd. The economics are why you have never heard of this. For the turkey baster in the baseboard trick, the timing matters more than the volume. You want to do this between 10 in the evening and midnight because that is when German cockroaches are most active and most likely to be foraging along the baseboards. Apply the solution at 2 in the afternoon and most of it will evaporate before the roaches come out. Apply it at 11 at night and you will catch the entire population on the move. I learned this from a pest control technician in Cincinnati who left the industry in 2014 because, as he told me, he could not keep charging people $300 for jobs he knew they could do themselves for $4. His name is Robert Mackey. He runs a small consulting business now where he teaches homeowners directly. He is one of the people who confirmed for me that the techniques in this video are the same techniques the old-timers in his trade used before the chemical companies took over the training schools in the 1970s. Robert told me a story I want to pass along to you. In 1986, when he was 23 years old and just starting out, he was sent to treat a restaurant in downtown Cincinnati that had a severe German cockroach infestation. The owner was a Greek immigrant named Nikolaos, and when Robert arrived with his backpack sprayer full of organophosphates, Nikolaos refused to let him spray. Nikolaos said, "In broken English, my father killed roaches in Athens with peroxide and bread. You do this for me, no poison in my kitchen." Robert had never heard of such a thing. He almost left. But Nikolaos was persuasive, and Robert agreed to try. They soaked stale bread cubes in 3% peroxide mixed with a tablespoon of honey and a pinch of yeast, and they placed the cubes behind the stove, under the dishwasher, along the back wall of the pantry, and inside the lower cabinets. They did this on a Thursday night. By Monday morning, when Robert returned to check, the kitchen was silent. He shined his flashlight behind the stove and counted, he told me, more than 400 dead roaches in a 6-square-foot area. The infestation was over. It never came back during the 11 years Nikolaos owned the restaurant. Robert kept that lesson with him for 30 more years, but he was forbidden by his employer from teaching it to customers. The company he worked for sold chemical treatments. Peroxide and bread did not appear on the invoice. I tell you this because I want you to understand that the people who actually do this work, the technicians who go into homes every day, many of them know exactly what I am telling you. They have known for decades. They are not allowed to say it out loud while they are wearing the company uniform. That is the world we live in. That is the system that has been built around your kitchen. Let me give you a few more techniques now, ones that did not fit cleanly into the original 20, but that you should know about if you are serious about clearing your home. There is a method the old German Lutherans in the Shenandoah Valley used for clothes moths in wool storage. They would take a clean cotton cloth, soak it in 3% peroxide mixed with a teaspoon of dried lavender steeped in the solution for an hour, wring it out until it was just damp, and fold it between the layers of stored wool blankets and sweaters in the cedar chest. The peroxide killed any moth eggs already in the wool. The lavender repelled new females from laying. Once a season, in late September, they would refresh the cloth. Wool that was stored this way came out of the chest in April with no holes, no larvae, no damage. The technique is documented in a 1931 home economics pamphlet from Virginia Polytechnic Institute, which I have a photocopy of on my desk right now. There is a technique for fruit fly elimination that uses a small glass jar, half an inch of peroxide solution at the bottom, a slice of overripe banana on a toothpick suspended above the liquid, and a paper funnel taped into the mouth of the jar. The flies enter, drawn by the banana. They cannot find their way back out through the funnel. They eventually land in the peroxide and die. A single jar will catch 60 to 80 fruit flies in a single overnight, which is essentially the entire breeding population in a typical kitchen. The trick is to leave it out for 4 nights in a row. because fruit fly eggs hatch on a 3 to 4 day cycle, and you need to catch the next generation before they reproduce. There is a technique for pantry moths, the ones that ruin flour and rice and oatmeal, that uses peroxide as a preventive wash on the empty jars and containers before you refill them. After you wash a glass jar in hot soapy water, rinse it, and then give it a final rinse with a tablespoon of 3% peroxide diluted in a cup of water. Let it air dry completely upside down. Any pantry moth eggs that were clinging to the inside of the jar from the last batch of flour are now dead. This single habit, practiced consistently, will eliminate pantry moth infestations from a kitchen within 2 months without any other intervention. There is a technique for the small drain flies that breed in the gunk inside slow bathroom and kitchen drains. Pour half a cup of 3% peroxide directly down the drain at bedtime, follow it with 2 tablespoons of baking soda, and do not run water for at least 6 hours. The peroxide oxidizes the organic film that the larvae feed on. The baking soda agitates the surface and lifts the gunk away from the pipe walls. In the morning, run hot water for 2 minutes. Repeat once a week for 3 weeks and the drain flies will be gone. The plumbing trade has known about this for 50 years. They do not advertise it because they sell $90 drain treatments. There is a technique for the small black ants that come in through window frames in late summer, which is different from the grease ants and the sugar ants that go for the pie pan. These window frame ants are usually pavement ants or odorous house ants, and they respond to a different bait. Mix 1 tablespoon of peanut butter with a 1/4 teaspoon of 3% peroxide and a pinch of borax. Smear small dabs of this paste on index cards and place the cards on the windowsills where the ants are entering. The peanut butter draws them in because these particular species prefer fats and proteins to sugars in late summer when they are stockpiling for winter. The peroxide and borax work together to disrupt their digestive systems. The colony will be gone within a week. There is a technique for the box elder bugs and stink bugs that congregate on the sunny side of houses in the fall, looking for a way inside to overwinter. Mix 2 cups of 3% peroxide with 2 tablespoons of plain dish soap in a garden sprayer and spray the exterior siding on the south and west sides of the house in late September. The soap breaks the surface tension of the bug's exoskeleton. The peroxide oxidizes the soft tissue underneath. The bugs that are already there die. New bugs that land on the treated siding die. By the time the first hard frost arrives, your siding is clean, and you do not have 600 stink bugs crawling on the inside of your living room window in February. There is a technique for the gnats and mites that get into houseplant soil. Mix 1 part 3% peroxide with 4 parts water and use it to water the plant once a month. The peroxide kills the larvae of fungus gnats in the top inch of soil where they hatch. It also breaks down into water and oxygen, which actually helps the plant roots breathe. There is no downside. There is no chemical residue. There is no harm to the plant. Commercial houseplant insecticides cost between $8 and $15 per bottle and do exactly the same thing, only with added synthetic chemicals you do not need. I want to spend a moment on safety, because I would be doing you a disservice if I did not. Everything I have told you involves 3% hydrogen peroxide, the standard brown bottle from the drugstore. Do not, under any circumstances, substitute 35% food-grade peroxide without diluting it correctly. The 35% stuff is 10 to 12 times more concentrated, and it can cause serious chemical burns to skin and permanent damage to eyes if it is handled carelessly. If you want to use food-grade peroxide for cost reasons, and many people do because a gallon of 35% costs about $30 and will last you years, you need to dilute it to 3% first. The math is simple. 1 part 35% peroxide to 11 parts distilled water gives you 3%. Mix it in a clean dark glass bottle, label it clearly, and store it away from children and pets. Wear gloves when you do the dilution. Do not splash. Do not breathe the vapor. The dilute 3% solution is safe enough that it has been used on cuts and scrapes for 100 years, but the concentrated stock is industrial strength and demands respect. Do not mix peroxide with vinegar in a sealed container. The combination produces peracetic acid, which is a useful disinfectant in some industrial applications but is irritating to the lungs and skin. You can use peroxide first and vinegar second on the same surface, or vice versa, but do not combine them in the same spray bottle. Do not mix peroxide with bleach, ever. The reaction produces oxygen gas rapidly and can cause a sealed bottle to rupture. Do not mix peroxide with ammonia. The combination is unstable and can produce toxic fumes. Store your brown bottles in a cool, dark place. Light degrades peroxide, heat degrades peroxide. The reason the bottle is brown is to block ultraviolet light. If you transfer peroxide to a clear bottle for any reason, you have just shortened its shelf life by half. Keep it in the brown bottle it came in, or transfer it to another dark glass container. A peroxide bottle that has been sitting in a sunny windowsill for 6 months has decomposed to mostly water and is essentially useless. Buy fresh bottles, they are cheap. A 3-pack at the dollar store costs $3. There is no reason to use old, weak peroxide when fresh peroxide is so inexpensive. One more thing before I close. I have been asked many times whether any of these techniques are dangerous to pets. The answer is, in the dilutions I have given you, no. 3% peroxide is the same concentration that veterinarians instruct dog owners to use to induce vomiting in dogs that have swallowed something toxic at a dose of 1 teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight. A dog that licks up a teaspoon of 3% peroxide from a pie pan will at worst vomit once and be completely fine within an hour. Cats are more sensitive, and you should not let cats drink peroxide solutions, so place the pie pans where cats cannot reach them. Birds should not be exposed to peroxide vapors in enclosed spaces, so if you keep birds, ventilate the room well when you apply the turkey baster treatment. Fish tanks should be covered or removed from rooms being treated. With these reasonable precautions, the entire program I have outlined is safer for your pets than almost any commercial pesticide on the market, most of which carry explicit warnings about keeping pets out of treated areas for hours or days after application. The brown bottle on your bathroom shelf is a key. It opens a door that was locked 70 years ago by people who profited from your ignorance. You can use the key, or you can leave it sitting where it is. But now you know it is a key, and you cannot unknow it, and that changes things.